Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed forecast update for Monday, the 27th of January 2025. A lot to get through today. We're going to be starting off and talking in great detail about the heavy rainfall that's streaming into far north Queensland at this time. A tropical low or tropical cyclone also expected to form offshore from the Coral Sea and impact the Queensland coastline. We'll touch on the central Queensland forecast as well, and down into the southeast and into New South Wales, where severe thunderstorms are expected. And we'll also touch on the WA heatwave / tropical cyclone threat as well. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. But let's get stuck straight into things this morning up in the far northern reaches of Queensland. So some significant rainfall has streamed through overnight. There were some heavy falls and heavy showers experienced around wide swathes of far north Queensland, especially along the Cassowary coast, and then the heaviest falls into the Daintree Rainforest. Maximum rainfall accumulations, officially speaking, have been 120 millimetres outside of Port Douglas. To be honest, I'm actually quite disappointed in that. I thought there'd be much more rainfall we'd be waking up to this morning. I didn't expect crazy accumulations above about 200 millimetres, but to be honest, I was expecting widespread swathes between 80 and 140 or 150 millimetres, and we haven't really woken up to that. South Mission Beach picked up about 85 millimetres, which was the highest observation I could find, officially speaking, on the Cassowary coast, with higher observations from personal weather stations amounting to about 120 millimetres or so. So there has been some significant falls here and there, and you can see the radar loop not really keen on showing us this heavy rainfall, but there are still some heavier showers streaming in here, especially one that's about to head into the Daintree with some peak rainfall accumulations up to about 70 millimetres an hour. And just like yesterday and yesterday afternoon, these showers are remaining slow moving, and you can see there's some big swathes of rain about to head into the far northern reaches of Queensland. But let's head straight into the forecast right now to see what is expected to happen over the course of today and over the coming couple of days. You can see the rainfall depression's low pressure system towards the north of Cooktown, in fact due north of Lizard Island right now by the looks of things. It's heading closer and closer to the Queensland coastline as well, and it's expected to kind of stagnate here over the coming couple of days. Now, as the sun moves through the atmosphere later on tonight and sets later tonight, of course, with the convective pulse that we're expecting to happen later on tonight, we're going to be getting another stream of showers heading into the far north Queensland coastline. We're looking at the Access forecast model here, which has proven to be quite reliable so far with this weather system and very consistent as well, but we're going to take this forecast with a heavy pinch of salt beyond Thursday, and I'll be showing you why later on in the video. So heavy falls expected to develop from about 3 or 4 p.m. local time into the Daintree Rainforest, for especially locations south of Cooktown right down through Cairns and even a little bit further than, south in Cairns as well. It looks like the Cassowary coast has actually kind of missed the forecast here with the heavy rainfall, and you can see between other forecast models as well, there's heavy falls concentrated around the Daintree Rainforest, and then the heavy falls are here and there hit and miss for the Cassowary coast, but they're not exactly as rock solid as what the Axis is saying for the Daintree Rainforest. So the Cassowary coast might actually miss out a little bit on the rainfall later on tonight. The Daintree, though, is certainly not going to be missing out on it. For the locations between Port Douglas and Wudgil, I would be expecting at least 150 millimetres to come through tonight. You can see here these heavy falls really ripping through those areas as this rainfall depression continues to funnel all of that rainfall ashore. The Cassowary coast doesn't miss out later on, though. We will be getting some falls streaming in ashore there later on tonight into very early tomorrow morning. You can see here from about 2 or 3 a.m. heavy rainfall beginning to develop around the Cassowary coast north of Ingham. In fact, north of Townsville, basically, there's going to be streams of showers heading in further south as well, down through Townsville and into the central areas of Queensland, or the north central areas of Queensland. These showers here are going to be heavy at times, but they're not going to be as consistent or as kind of rain laden as they will be around the far northern coastline of Queensland, especially the Daintree and the Cassowary coastlines. We are expecting the showers up there to be holding much more rainfall and much more moisture, and such rainfall accumulations down there will be also a much more certain chance of getting up towards those higher levels, where around Townsville and Ayr it'd be a bit of a hard shot to get more than about 25 millimetres. Of course, some places probably going to see more like 50 or 100 millimetres later on tonight around Townsville, down to Ayr, and even as far south as Bowen, but for the most part places won't be picking up anything in excess of about 25 millimetres. Those good falls continue into early tomorrow morning and then into late tomorrow morning, peaking at about 9 o'clock for the Cassowary coast, with some very heavy falls expected around there just towards the offshore reaches, and we're probably going to be seeing a steady stream of rainfall moving through somewhere between Cairns down towards Ingham. This won't be a shower band, this will just be a big thick band of moderate to intense rainfall heading into the far northern coastline of Queensland, and that will be delivering the Rolls-Royce type rainfall that they are expecting from this weather event here, the really heavy stuff, the couple of 100 millimetres falling in a 6-hour period, and that is still going to happen by the looks of things, at least as what the forecast is suggesting. And if you play through the forecast further throughout the rest of Tuesday, the Axis is calling for torrential rainfall to continue along the far north Queensland coastline, especially the Cassowary coast and into the Daintree. But if we cross-reference this with another forecast model, yes, there's going to be intense falls, locally intense falls, and widespread moderate to heavy falls along the Cassowary coast, and they do persist into Wednesday morning. They're just not to the degree that the Axis is saying, and this is kind of where the Axis forecast model begins to break down. It's actually actually calling for this rainfall depression to develop into a tropical low. Now, this is pretty typical of the Axis forecast model, considering it is what we call a convective forecast model, so it takes thunderstorms and hyperanalyzes them and goes absolutely bonkers with them, and it proves pretty well as a method of analysing thunderstorms around Australia in the summer, especially around Queensland and the North Queensland area. But when you're talking about tropical cyclones and tropical lows, the Axis is not a forecast model you want to be using, especially when you're trying to make predictions as per rainfall. And considering that the Axis is developing this rainfall depression into a full-blown tropical low or tropical cyclone, from about Wednesday lunchtime onwards, the rainfall forecast falls apart here from the Axis and it becomes really unreliable, and it would be irresponsible of me to show you any further. I will later on in the video just for trivial sake, but right now we're going to switch it over to the Eastern River forecast, and this is representative of what I believe as well. Those heavy falls piping up again, just a reminder, on Monday night, continuing right throughout Tuesday, easing off late Tuesday evening and into Wednesday morning, and yes, there'll be residual showers here and there throughout Wednesday and into Thursday. We'll just zoom out to get a bit of a better look. It's feeling a bit claustrophobic at this time, and those showers sticking around through Thursday, turning to thunderstorms actually Thursday night into Friday morning. And whilst we will likely see a low pressure system develop somewhere in the Coral Sea and funnel more rainfall ashore into the Cassowary coast, likely later on this coming week and into this weekend, Friday night and into Saturday morning, we'll likely see another heavy burst of rainfall there. We're not expecting the rainfall that the Axis is calling for at this time. Now, the Eastern River does keep some significant falls on the forecast throughout the first week of February. Now, that's because a tropical low is pretty much set in stone to develop somewhere in the Coral Sea or in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Now, regardless of where these systems develop, whether it's in the Gulf of Carpentaria or on the Queensland side of the Coral Sea, a lot of rainfall will be funneled ashore into the far north reaches of Queensland around the Cape York Peninsula, but also around the Cassowary coast and the Daintree Rainforest. And that's because if the low pressure system, which is what the Eastern River is calling for here, develops in the Gulf of Carpentaria, it's going to be dragging in this moisture stream from the Coral Sea, moving east to west as the tropical moisture bands normally do flow, and that will feed into this tropical low here, but it'll mostly be just drenching the far northern areas of Queensland with heavy rainfall once again from Saturday or Sunday onwards. Or if it develops into the Coral Sea, which is what the GFS is more so expecting at this time. Now, the GFS is not normally a forecast model that I use for rainfall because of its low resolution. If it formed a little bit closer to Queensland, then we'll be seeing some heavy falls rip around on the backside of this system here and kind of impact the Cassowary coast, but at this time it doesn't look like that's overly likely at this time. So we'll have a close gander at these at the tropical forecast in just a few moments, but at this time it does look a little bit uncertain, the rainfall beyond about Friday, but there could still be some more on the cards up in the far northern areas of Queensland. Let's dive straight into those rainfall accumulations now. We shouldn't be faffing around anymore with long range forecast if we haven't even finished up on the short range. So we've only got about 3 days left of this heavy rainfall here, about 72 hours left of this heavy rainfall, and the forecast models are remaining a little bit uncertain. Thankfully, the Axis is proving to be a pretty reliable forecast model until about Wednesday morning, when the rainfall forecast does become a little bit more of a bogus. So this is a look at the Axis forecast, which I do believe to be accurate, but it's certainly the absolute maximum in terms of what rainfall is expected. So this is what I'm showing you right now, an absolute worst case scenario, and I'll give you my 2 cents worth on every single town as well up in the far northern areas of Queensland. So Woodgill about 100 millimeters on this forecast. I think that's completely valid as well. Same deal with Cooktown, and then further north up towards Lizard Island, about 100 millimeters. I think that's completely reasonable at this time. Port Douglas, Mossman, and Cape Tribulation all expecting about 300 or 400 millimeters as well, and again, I think that's a pretty solid number. I do still expect a spot rainfall accumulation over the next 3 days in the Daintree Rainforest to be up around that 700 or 800 millimeter mark, which is actually more than what this forecast is suggesting. Then heading south towards Corunda, we're probably looking at about 150 or 200 millimeters there. I reckon they're going to pick up about 100 to 150. Cairns will also pick up about 80 to 150 millimeters of rainfall. That's a little bit higher than what this forecast is suggesting, but as we get further south, you can see the rainfall does become kind of a load of boogies along the far north Queensland coastline, the Cassowary coast. Innisfail here expecting about 650 millimeters. I reckon that's a little bit bullish. I reckon Innisfail will pick up a further 500 millimeters of rainfall at an absolute top, but most likely between 300 and 500 millimeters. But Binder will probably go for about 400 to 600 millimeters here. Tully will probably be about 300 to 500 millimeters again, same with Innisfail. I do just reckon Tully will edge out both Innisfail and Babinda will actually edge out Innisfail and Tully in terms of rainfall, but only by a pretty small margin. It's going to be pretty negligible. But you can see these rainfall accumulations along the coastline where we're talking about 900 to 1,000 millimeters. It is possible at this time, especially with torrential falls that we're coming through throughout Tuesday morning and into the daytime on Tuesday, especially into Tuesday evening. Actually, that's shaping up to be pretty wet at this time. There will be some heavy falls there, but up to 1,000 millimeters along the coastline. I'm erring on the side of I don't think that's going to happen. If there's going to be 1,000 millimeters of rainfall, it's going to be around Bartlefree or Bellend and Kerr, and I just think they might be a little bit too far out of the way at this time. Things can change, of course, but 3 days for 1,000 millimeters of rainfall, that's a big ask given for far north Queensland. So I think those spot rainfall accumulations of 1,000 millimeters, because we didn't see 250 millimeters last night, I think they may be off the cards now for the Cassowary coast. But again, we'll keep a very close eye on things. Further inland, Rainfall expecting about 100 millimeters. I can't really fault that. Atherton on this forecast about 20 millimeters. In fact, I'd actually probably be calling for about 50 to 100 millimeters for Atherton, and the same deal for Mareeba as well. But further inland, don't get your hopes up for rainfall at all. Rainfall accumulations there will be in single digits or low double digits. You shouldn't be getting more than about 25 millimeters of rainfall once you get inland from Mareeba, Atherton, or Ravenso. Unfortunately, because this is from showers, it is going to be exclusively coastal based, and because we're not really expecting it to be tropical related either, it is again going to be exclusively coastal based. Down towards Cardwell and Ingham as well, probably about 300 millimeters apiece there. I maybe could see Cardwell getting up to about 400 millimeters, but certainly nothing more than about 300 millimeters for Ingham, and it would be a stretch for Cardwell to get more than 300 millimeters as well. Further down the coastline towards Townsville, about 100 millimeters there, and I'm expecting that to come through from showers over the coming 24 to 48 hours. Some heavy falls are possible there from those showers, which could lead to some flash flooding in places, and I do reckon 100 millimeters is a good number for Townsville. You could pick up a lot more, you could pick up a lot less. It's from showers, and they're going to be coming in from a pretty weird angle, so for Townsville, the rainfall right now is a little bit uncertain. Air about 50 millimeters further down the coastline down towards Bowen as well, about 50 millimeters there. I reckon Hamilton Island will pick up about 100 millimeters of rainfall in the weather station at the airport there on top of the rainfall that they've already picked up. Proserpine will probably get about 30 or 40 millimeters as well, and then further south towards Mackay, probably about 20 or 30 millimeters, and all of this rainfall here is from residual showers, so very hard to pick up on this forecast model here. So yeah, we're a little bit uncertain with the rainfall forecast in the more central areas of Queensland, but there still could be some pretty good falls there. And just before I wrap this part of the video up, this is why we're not using the Axis forecast model as a rainfall forecaster. Need I say more here? The white areas on this color scheme is over 800 millimeters, so you're probably thinking around the bulk of this system here, but you're probably looking at about 14 or 1500 millimeters. Nah, you're looking at 3,500 millimeters across some of these places here. So the Axis is proving to be an unreliable forecast model for rainfall beyond the 3-day forecast period here, which is typical. When it calls for tropical lows, it calls for those really slow-moving, messy systems here, and as I play this through, you can see that rainfall just continues. It refuses to stop right throughout Thursday, Friday, then in towards Saturday as this tropical low develops. I mean, it's almost comical how much rainfall the Axis is predicting here from this tropical low as it meanders its way down the Queensland coastline. If this happened, it would break records, and it would break daily records as well, not only Australia, but probably worldwide. We'd be seeing 24-hour accumulations up to 1,500 millimeters or so, so you know for sure that an event like this is not going to happen, and considering it's got no other model support either, there's no other forecast model that's suggesting rainfall continuing at that kind of magnitude beyond Thursday or Friday, so this is all but fake news right now. So we'll keep a very close eye on this situation though, but I can guarantee that no rainfall accumulation above 1,000 millimeters is looking awfully likely across far north Queensland, let alone 3,500 millimeters. I mean, that would break all sorts of records, even for far north Queensland. That would be absolutely mental to happen over a 3 or 4 day period, so you know that is a bit of Access G3 fake news right now, but we do get it every now and then. Anyways, let's switch things up here and talk about the tropical low situation offshore from the Coral Sea, because there is a pretty complicated forecast here and a lot of factors still at play. So the Eastern River has been hell-bent on that tropical low developing in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and it is a plausible situation at this time. You can see that tropical low developing there sometime in the first couple of days of February, and then moving into the Queensland side of things, the Northern Territory side of things on the Carpentaria coastline around Robinson River at about Category 1 status. It'd be a weak system, and then it calls for another system to develop close to New Caledonia and Vanuatu on the other side of the Coral Sea as well. The GFS has been pretty confident with that system as well, but it actually forms it south of Port Moresby into the northern areas of the Coral Sea on the Queensland side of things on about Saturday or Sunday, and then it slowly meanders down towards the south. Actually takes a very similar track to what Tropical Cyclone Kirrily did, and it's probably going to resemble Tropical Cyclone Kirrily in it being a very broad and stubborn system to develop, and then as it gets close to a Queensland landfall, potentially it will likely do a little bit of rapid intensification. I mean, the GFS forecast here is looking a little bit long range and a little bit of an unreliable forecast model here, taking it into a landfall around Bundaberg. The GFS actually has a bit of a bias for central towards southeastern Queensland tropical cyclone landfalls. I'm not sure why that is, or if it's just a model fluke, but I've seen it over the last couple of years, so I wouldn't really be inclined to follow this situation here from the GFS. I think right now what we're going to be seeing in terms of a tropical cyclone or a tropical low track is a formation somewhere around here where the cursor is, north of this text of the Coral Sea Islands territory here, about 500 or 600 kilometers offshore from Queensland, about 500 or 600 kilometers offshore from out Lockhart River, and then it will likely track following the cursor very closely down through this sort of area here, sliding or paralleling the Queensland coastline, and then heading down here into the more sort of cooler waters in the Tasman Sea. So if a tropical low or tropical cyclone did take that track, there's going to be some pretty good conditions ahead of it, but at this time I don't really foresee the high chance of a Queensland landfall. The forecast is still very uncertain on this tropical low or tropical cyclone's future, and I have a feeling we're not going to know until basically something does form up there, or we start to see some condensing of the rainfall, or some low pressure systems start to develop up in the Coral Sea. So again, we're still very much in the uncertain period right now with this tropical development. We're going to have to wait and see over the coming couple of days what is expected, because there's really no hints or rumbles of activity in terms of the tropics right now. This can completely bust out and we might not be seeing anything in the way of tropical cyclone or tropical activity in the Coral Sea either. If I have left your head spinning, and I totally do not blame you if I have, especially if you live in North Queensland or even the central Queensland coastline, please do flick me an email or leave a comment in the comment section down below. I'd be more than happy to help you out as well. Also, if you've got footage of the rainfall or you'd like to share your reports as well, then please do send it to me, to my email. There's a link in the channel description as well, or hit me up on Facebook. There'll be a link in the channel description as well over there. I'd be very inclined to see videos and updates of this system as well up in the far northern reaches of Queensland. And I would also just like to finish this part of the video off by saying far north Queensland, central Queensland, southeastern Queensland, any part of Queensland or even the Northern Territory, the chance of a tropical cyclone impacting your area in the next 7 days is pretty much zero. It's probably like 0.5 or 1% at this time. It's very, very low. And you bet I'll be the first to let you know if that does change. Beyond that, the forecast is just too uncertain. It's still a very low chance of happening, but the forecast is too uncertain to be making a proper estimate at this time. But yeah, that does it for the far northern reaches of Queensland. But if you thought we were done with Queensland yet, you should know me better, because we've got thunderstorms across the southeast and into the northeast of New South Wales as well. Starting up from tonight, actually, we're going to be seeing a bit of an outbreak into the northeast of New South Wales. It's going to be a pretty warm day actually up there, into the high 30s and early 40s. So pretty good conditions for thunderstorms to be developing there, and the chance of some severe thunderstorms around Armidale and Glen Innes, extending north up to the border around Wollongara and Stanthorpe into the southeast of Queensland. The chance of thunderstorms into the Brisbane and the Gold Coast area not looking awfully likely at this time. Pushing the forecast forward to tomorrow afternoon, we'll likely see a bit of a beefier outbreak across the northeast of New South Wales. Again, same locations around Armidale, with a couple of storms extending over the border into the southeast of Queensland around Stanthorpe, Wollongara and Warwick once again, and a couple of thunderstorms extending further south into the southeast of New South Wales, right through Canberra, Captain's Flat, and up to about Bathurst as well. We'll likely see a good couple of thunderstorms outbreaking there. More thunderstorms expected on Wednesday as well. Again, more sort of a central New South Wales day around Dubbo, Coolah, up towards Narrabri as well. And then on Thursday, we're likely going to be seeing those thunderstorms shift a little bit closer in their formative stages around towards Tamworth and Armidale. Again, the chance of severe thunderstorms on both Tuesday and Wednesday looking pretty good, but the chance of severe thunderstorms on Thursday not looking overly likely at this time. We still could see a couple of stronger cells around the Armidale and Inverell area, but we will keep a close eye on things. Not expecting anything crazy over the coming couple of days. More thunderstorms possible on Friday, more thunderstorms also possible on Saturday as well, turning into showers at times across the southeast of Queensland. But in terms of major severe thunderstorm outbreaks, not expecting any of that stuff to happen for the remainder of this week. And then beyond Saturday or Sunday into the first week of February, it is looking high and dry across the southeast of Queensland and also the northeast of New South Wales in terms of rainfall, and also in terms of thunderstorm outbreaks. And looking much further into the future, you can see that low pressure system coming down. That could turn into an east coast low after it has its run of tropical cyclone status, but at this time we're looking very long range, and it'd be irresponsible of me to be calling any shots on this system at this time. And just before we're done with the thunderstorm forecast over in the eastern states and the eastern states as a whole, it is going to be a warm day as well across parts of Victoria and New South Wales. We're already seeing temperatures into the high 30s across parts of New South Wales and South Australia, and mid 30s for Victoria, and those are expected to continue rising throughout the course of today. Melbourne expecting a warm top of 36 degrees, Mildura top of 42, so it is going to get quite warm across Victoria and New South Wales. Thankfully, things cooling off from a cool change that's going to blow through later on tonight into early tomorrow morning, cooling things off for both Victoria and New South Wales. Now, just before we touch on the West Australian tropical low / tropical cyclone situation, I would just like to touch on rainfall accumulations across the Northern Territory. This is a really exciting part of the video over the next 14 days. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail here because we're still looking quite far out into the future and the forecast is still rather uncertain, but we do actually have some really good rumbles of activity now in terms of rainfall. It looks like that monsoonal arrival is finally going to come in early February, get this, with about 500 millimeters now on the cards for the northwestern coast of the Northern Territory and also the northwestern coast of WA as well into the Kimberley Kimberley region. 500 or 600 millimeters of rainfall expected to come through in those areas in the 7 to 14 day period. But yeah, long range suggests a lot of rainfall coming through for the Northern Territory, and it's right throughout the top end of the Northern Territory, extending further south as well down to Tennant Creek and even as far south as Alice Springs. Just a boatload of rainfall is expected on this forecast model here, starting off with that tropical low, but then beyond that it looks like plenty of rainfall is going to continue across the Northern Territory. So really exciting stuff from just inflow bands and the westerlies streaming in that rainfall. Certainly something to get excited about. The forecast has been suggesting this for a couple of weeks now. The really long range has been suggesting this to happen for about a month now as well. So considering it's now on the shorter range forecast from the EastMWF and also reciprocated between other forecast models too now, I am really inclined to say that this is actually a high possibility on the forecast, and it might be time to start getting excited for a little bit of rainfall across the top end of the Northern Territory, and especially around the Gulf of Carpentaria coastline as well. Regardless of if that tropical low or tropical cyclone forms, we'll likely be seeing some good rainfall there. But all of this is going to happen beyond about the 5th or the 6th of February at this time. It's going to be long range into the future, so we will keep a close eye on things, but certainly something to keep in the back of your head for the Northern Territory, and I imagine that is going to make a lot of people very excited to hear. And we're also expecting more tropical activity over in the West Australian waters as well. Thankfully, nothing expected to impact the WA coastline, but we will likely see a monsoon trough develop between the Cocos-Keeling Islands and the Kimberley region of Western Australia, which will spin up at least one, potentially two tropical lows, which could both turn into tropical cyclones beyond about the 3rd or the 4th of February. You can see one here really dominating this show as it has done for the last couple of days, spinning up well to the offshore of Western Australia on about Wednesday or Thursday, the 5th or the 6th of February, respectively. And it does become a weak tropical cyclone very briefly before heading into the southwest Indian Ocean as a long-lived tropical low and perishing over there. So interesting stuff, but well offshore from WA, so of course absolutely no threat to land. We have had rumbles of activity of tropical lows firing off the Kimberley coastline, but that's more sort of been into mid-February, so I think maybe towards the 7th to the 14th of February might be something to watch again for the West Australian coastline, especially up into the Kimberley region, whether it's rainfall or tropical cyclone impacts. But at this time, the forecast, that is very long range, and we would be irresponsible for me to be calling anything up there at this time, but it is getting closer and closer, that is for sure. Anyways, that is all that I have time for in today's forecast update. A comprehensive job done over in Queensland. There'll be another forecast update on it later this afternoon as well, so make sure you are sticking around and subscribe for that. Again, very close to 24,000 subscribers, and all of the support lately has been much appreciated. If you haven't already, check out the Facebook page, check out it will be going to be posting daily rainfall updates as well, and anything that I do find interesting around the Australian weather scene as well, so make sure you are following that as well. Lots of good stuff coming over there, but that is all from me today. Let me know in the comment section down below if you need help with the forecast for your location. Subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a like on the video if you haven't already, but that is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.